Today, we continue our discussion with one of Ottawa's longest serving veteran tech CEOs. He has successfully led his company, ProntoForms, for 20 years on an upward trajectory. Today, we explore ProntoForms' financials, its business challenges, and its opportunities with Alvaro Pombo. All of this coming up on Techopia Live. Hello, I'm Michael Curran. This is another bonus episode of Techopia Live that is supplementing many of the episodes done by our regular host, Sherry Ask. Thanks to Sherry for all her hard work. I'm doing a series of year-end interviews with some of Ottawa's most intriguing technology companies. This episode is actually part 2 of an interview with a company called ProntoForms. We're going to be speaking with its CEO here in a second. Very interesting company formed 20 years ago. By the founder is its current CEO. So I think that's really intriguing. In the second part, by the way, we're going to be talking about its financials, what it's like to run a publicly traded company. We're going to talk about a specific business development challenge they have. But let's meet its CEO right now. Here is Alvaro Pombo. Hello, Alvaro.
Hey, Michael. Good to see you back.
Thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it. So in the first episode, we talked about the history. We talked about your market opportunity. We talked about your product. So if anyone wants to know that stuff, go back to the other one. But we're going to look forward here. And I want to start off by talking about your financials. Alvaro, you reported your Q3 not too long ago. Give us a peek inside of the books, as they say, of ProntoForms.
Yeah, look, it's never enough on the quarterly bandwagon all the time, pushing it hard and hard. The company has a very long history of good numbers. The growth has been ranging in the 20%. I mean, we reported 15 in Q4. There was an event that lowers that number, which we changed a channel primarily with AT&T in the US, and that took some customers away, which is totally fine because, as I was saying in the previous episode, we focus on large enterprises. Some of the small businesses went away with AT&T happily because we can focus more on what our business is. So the numbers are, the company grows steadily. I don't know how many quarters we have of a steady growth in the 4 to 5% range. And then we have these blips of large enterprise growth. So from a perspective of a growth approach, our objective is to be on the high 20s, close to 30s. Okay, we were there in 2019. The pandemic had an effect, no question about it. And we're going back up without any doubt. And as we are heading, as we're going up, as I said, about 70% of the revenue comes from existing customers. 30% is new customers that come. And the focus in the enterprise, the key part of the financial performance of the company is to accelerate and reduce these peaks of large enterprise deployment, which we will talk about a little bit more in a second. A few more financial metrics. We run at about 90% margin, so it's a great business. We run very close to profitability. We've been profitable. Anytime we want to stop hiring people, we become profitable. But our objective is a growth stock. This is a growth story. And there is never enough growth. So we're going at it very hard in a rational way. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So we're just very focused on optimizing the growth rate for the amount of money investment and the productivity that the sales organization can give us for that.
And you must have lots of recurring revenue, if I understand your business model, right? So there's kind of an upwards trajectory that you're on. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's about 91% is recurring revenue. We're about $20 million US. All the numbers that you've seen is we report everything in US dollars. So it's about $20 million of annual recurring revenue.
And talk to me a little bit about that balance, because I was looking at the profitability and you spoke to it a minute ago, and you kind of you kind of said what I thought you might, that it's a situation where you're a growth play. So you are growing, but you're continually reinvesting in the company in order to fuel that growth. Do I understand that correctly,
Yeah,
Alvaro?
correctly. Yeah, totally. It's a growth play. I mean, look, we stop investing as much as we are in the business, and you get profitable in 2 seconds. We've done it last quarter, last year. There was something. I mean, through the pandemic and everything, we've done it quite a few times where we touch profitability, but we continue to invest, and being public help us as well on that. We'll talk as well about that in a few seconds. But when you're public, you're out there, you have clarity, and the objective is to attract shareholders to that profile. We don't want to be good for everybody. That doesn't work. There are investors that understand exactly what I'm referring to. It's a steady state growth, and in a rational way, without throwing tons of money at it and waiting to see what happens. Now, you might lose acceleration sometimes. That's totally fair. But our stage, we believe, and the stage of the market, we believe we're doing it right, but we are definitely pushing the gas pedal harder as we speak.
Well, this you already mentioned is a great segue into the fact that ProntoForms, of course, is a publicly traded company on the TSXV. So there's many tech CEOs in Ottawa, Alvaro. I'm sure you know many of them, but you
Yeah.
have an interesting challenge here, being a publicly traded company. So tell us about that decision way back when to become a
Yeah.
publicly traded company, and maybe part two of that would be, what's it like to manage? Like you have to
Yeah.
manage the business, if I'm not mistaken, in a particular way.
Yeah, look, I laugh a little bit because there are scars here, scars here. And look, that's what build the character, I guess, at the end of the day. It's not that terrible. And I'll tell you why. I mean, we ended up being public because 2008, one of our largest shareholders, the world collapsed, okay, as we all remember. And we decided that the best way to bring some money into the company in those days was through doing, I mean, a CPC, a story that people know about these reverse takeovers, similar to the SPACs in the US these days. And that gave us enough money to continue the journey. As we stayed there, the beauty of this thing is that there are no skeletons in the closet. Everybody owns the same type of shares, no prefs, no nothing. Everything is very clear, very transparent. Governance is very clear. So the company has evolve, I mean, in a more mature way than our revenue represents. But that's the good news. The key for the listeners is the kind of shareholders you target. Okay, you cannot go to these markets, or you can, but my advice is don't do it if you have the similar profile to us. You cannot go to these markets basically going after the retail monstrous play when people don't understand what you're trying to do. So there is a level of sophistication in the investor that understand it's a micro cap, it's going at a pace, and it's deploying the resources in a certain way. Now, I believe there is obviously a micro cap in Canada is undervalued by definition. Okay, so you're definitely leaving money on the table in quotes. But when you target this type of shareholders, it's a private company. At the end of the day, our shareholders are very sophisticated funds and very sophisticated, wealthy shareholders that understand what they buy and what they hold. Therefore, the stock doesn't move that much, doesn't necessarily mean a lot, but you keep on tracking and evolving the story, and you're building shareholder value. The realization of it will come at a different time, but in the meantime, you're tracking and you're evolving the value for everybody.
I think what you said there is really interesting, Alvaro, and you're experiencing this, and not many other companies are. So you're not looking for retail investors. You're like, I mean, you might bump into them, but that's not really the play. So help me understand, how do you get the attention of these funds? I would imagine that many of them like are in the US. Do you like literally do you cold call them and say, come visit our office, and we're gonna show you what Pronto Form's about, and we
It's
hope
a
you
great
make an investment? How do you do that?
It's a great question, and there is a magic on that. Not that I created it, but there is a magic on that. Targeting. When these guys go to microcap conferences, you go and speak on those, and you speak in the same way I'm speaking to you, very openly, transparently, and people understand the play, okay, and they understand that the Canadian market is undervalued, and ultimately they hold positions and positions that are they acquire them slowly, or some of them rapidly. And there is a market for this type of stories, and they're sophisticated. They keep in touch with you, they visit you, they fly to see you, all those wonderful things, and you build a strong relationship with them. So we have about 3 to 5 of that type, and there is another, call it 10, that are sophisticated, 15 sophisticated investors that know what they're doing. And then there is a larger amount. I don't know how many shareholders we will have right now, but it will be 200 kind of number. But they know what we own.
That's really interesting. By the way, we're going to talk about a business development challenge that you experience, and you're going to share your stories with the hope that maybe others can relate to it. But before we do that, talk about your business challenge, Alvaro, I want to pause for a second to recognize the sponsor of this episode, Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall. Tech companies must move at the speed of light, and they need a law firm that moves just as fast. Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall has developed long-standing expertise in helping tech companies address their legal matters. As Ottawa's largest premier full-service law firm, Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall has provided a number of specialized legal services for the past 50 years. Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall's in-house legal experts can help tech companies with financing strategies, venture capital, private placements and public offerings, mergers and acquisitions, intellectual property protections, shareholder agreements, and much more. To learn more about how Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall can help your company, visit perlaw.ca. All right, thanks again to Perley Robertson, Hill and McDougall. So Alvaro, before we did this interview, I asked you, can we talk about a business challenge? And you brought up something related to business development. Tell us a bit about this business challenge with the hope that other people might relate to it and understand your issue here.
Yeah. So the scenario, I always say that I receive a lot of advice, but sometimes good advice and sometimes not that good. And the one that is not that good is because they don't understand exactly at what stage are you at. Okay. So I'll paint the following scenario. It's about $20 million of annual recurring revenue. You're a SaaS company. You're focusing on large enterprises. So I said it on the previous episode, you sell the first one. Okay. So we sell quite a few new accounts every quarter. They come and they usually start with a tiny little proof of concept, and it comes through the line of business. And your task right there is to try to sell, get them going, obviously, through a proof of concept or any of the other arrangements that you will have, but ultimately to demonstrate impact on the business, to demonstrate whatever the objectives were, the ROI was defined on. So as you get that, the next step of it, which starts almost the day after you sold it, is all like, okay, how are we going to expand? How are you going to expand within a business requires different degrees of sophistication. So I'll tell you, my first stage was, onboard them properly, customer success investments. All those things are wonderful, no question about it. We couldn't be living without a client, a customer success function like the one we have. But then you get to the next level, which is, okay, how are you going to look into other use cases that can propagate into other parts of those organizations? So we've made a huge investment in identifying those use cases and try to show the customer journey throughout different use cases, because field automation is quite big. So then you get to the next level, which is, okay, now you have to have a strategic account manager, salespeople that are sophisticated in their trade to ultimately love these customers, present these different opportunities, and it's account management. I'm not saying something that people won't understand. The challenge is we did it 20, 25 times, well done. Now I have 160 large enterprises. And how do you do that at scale? And that's where you pause and you say, how are you going to do that at scale? Because that's where the growth on the 30s or north of 30s come from, doing that at scale. So I go back to where I was saying in the previous episode, you have these peaks and valleys, and doing this at scale is what will reduce the valleys and ultimately layer the growth at a different speed. So, I mean, as I said before, 70% is existing businesses of the bookings of every quarter, 30% is new. So you have to develop new muscles in your body, and you have to develop a sophistication on the go-to-market that is easier said than done. I knew that was a challenge, a wall that was coming. Climbing it has been a lot harder than what I thought at a distance.
That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that, Alvaro. I see, that's a very sophisticated type of account management, and how do you grow at scale, as you said. Listen, we're going to wrap up in a second, Alvaro. I hope there are people watching this, of course, learning more about ProntoForms, but maybe people watching this saying, I'd like to go work for that Alvaro guy. He looks pretty cool. So if anyone just and Alvaro, talent is like on everyone's minds these days. It seems to be the recurring business issue. Tell us about the culture of
Yeah,
ProntoForms.
So look, we left it in the great place. So how do you orchestrate managing those customers in that way?
Yes,
You orchestrate it by having a very talented group of people, and you orchestrated that experience for the customers is driven by a culture inside the organization. You cannot fake that. Just a good sales guy won't do it. You need to have a heck of a support organization, a heck of everything, okay? So ultimately, I believe in culture, not only because I believe in people, I seriously believe that the culture of the organization is one of the most important assets of any organization. But I believe on transparency and telling the story as it is. And I believe, I spend a lot of cycles, and we spend as a company. It's not an effort, it's what we do. Otherwise, you cannot do the kind of things I'm telling you naturally, okay? And that's been, as a leader, that's been the most fascinating thing, is understanding that all these pieces go together, okay? And that's the culture of the organization. We care about each other tremendously. We value simplicity, as you heard it before, and we're big into performing. And those are the three values that are written in a wall at the entrance of the office, which we haven't been to that often recently. But we wear them. We don't have to have them written on a wall. We wear them, and we do it every day.
I like that point. I like that point, Alvaro. Yeah, you don't have to look at them on a wall. You just need to live them every day and be, reminded by a great CEO. So, well, listen, Alvaro, it's been a pleasure. A two-part interview with you. We really dug into the first episode again, kind of the company, its history, and had a good look at its financials, and of course, this business challenge. Thank you for sharing so much. Best of luck to ProntoForms in 2022. Eager to see what it will achieve in the new year.
Michael, thanks for the opportunity. Great to get to know you more. And thanks to the listeners for putting up with the Spanish accent. So
I think it's charming. It's absolutely charming, Alvaro. Okay, have a good day. Well, big thanks again to Alvaro Pombo of ProntoForms for spending those two episodes with me. As we wrap up, let's take a look at some of the sponsors that are behind Techopia. Techopia is brought to you by many great sponsors, such as Number Crunch, offering virtual CFO services for SaaS companies; Pearlie Robertson Hill & McDougall, a leader in business and technology sector law; TD Bank, specialized programs for technology companies; the University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent. Techopia is not only a podcast. We post new articles daily at obj.ca/Techopia. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, you can find Techopia at Techopia OTT. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and click the bell icon. Thanks for watching this episode of Techopia Live. And reminder, I'm going to be doing a bunch of interviews, double-barreled, as they say, with local CEOs over the next few weeks. In fact, maybe even a couple months. Just looking at the year end and looking forward to 2022. And I think you're really going to enjoy some of these interviews. Again, thank you to Alvaro Pombo and all of his colleagues at ProntoForms for letting us take a little peek inside that company. That's all the time we have for today. So thanks for watching. Please be safe. Please stay connected, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.